great to have a good plan, but much important than the plan is the ability to execute. Where do you want to go and what's important to be done? It's pretty important. Changing all the time gets people tired and frustrated.
Well, Raphael, great to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Damien. Thanks for having me here. My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Let's dive right in. Raphael Carvalho, you appear in articles. You've been a CEO of big multinationals, national companies as well there in Brazil. Where do you come from? What those early days look like? Yeah.
Well, from the very beginning, I'm from a family of immigrants that came from Portugal. My mother was around already, but from Portuguese origin as well. I'm a Brazilian citizen, originally from Rio. Most of the time now I'm in São Paulo, but I still keep a place in Rio. That's the city that I love. My whole career, I've been working in financial services in Latin America.
Yeah.
Back to the basics, I went to the military school, which was great.
Okay.
I did like it. But after that, I decided to get a degree, computer science and math. So that's the degree that I have. And I started my career as a consultant, pretty much like you, but it was management consulting that time. And then we'll cover a little bit later that I was a headhunter as well. For some time.
Yeah,
it was great. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I'm mixing, different stages of my career, but getting back to the beginning, management consulting. That time it was Anderson Consulting that became Accenture.
Yeah.
And there, it was the very first time that I had the opportunity to be in the financial service world. So the 10 years that I was there, it was more because it was 2 rounds. Almost 14 years that I was in Accenture, it was 100% of the time in financial service. And that's pretty much where I came from.
Yeah, right. Well, and how did you, because it's always hard, knowing what, right after high school, let's say, what you're going to study. So how did you decide what you wanted to study, right?
Probably it's not very inspiring, but I wouldn't say I had a true vocation for something. And the decision that I made that time was based in 2 things. I was, and I still am, and we'll cover this later on if you want. I was very ambitious. So the military career doesn't seem to be where I would feel, happy and accomplishing all the goals that I had in my mind. So that time, and like today, technology was somehow a way to grow fast. It was the very first boom of technology in Latin America. And I'm speaking about the early 90s. So that's why I decided to pick computer science and math. I was good in math as well. So that's why I chose that. So not very inspiring, no true vocation, but that's what the true story was.
Yeah, you had to do something, and then you got there into management. So how did that happen? Was that like conscious? You say I want to get into this, or?
Yeah, it's a very good question. When I was about to graduate, I had many internships, most of them in the technical side. But the plain truth is that I was not that happy only on the technical side. I was good on that. I was a good developer, but that was not what truly, make me be on the edge. So I made a lot of research on what we can do from the very beginning. And I was between investment banking and management consulting. And that time, management consulting seemed to be an opportunity to start with a broader vision. And that's why I pick up management consulting.
All right. So definitely you had 2 options in front of you. It was really a conscious decision. You spent, I think it was around 10 years in management consulting. This first period is with
10 years. That's it.
10 years there. So as you look back, what are the things you learned, or more specifically, the skills you developed during that 10-year period that set the foundation for your growth after that? What would you say are the main skills?
I would say that problem solving and a sense of urgency was something that management consulting definitely make you develop. But this is more technical. But the soft side, teamwork was pretty important. I do remind, well, it was more than 30 years ago, but I do remind the recruiting process in Anderson that time. And one of the steps was to have the final candidates to something. And there were two steps. First, you solve what they put in front of you, and then they leave you by yourself. So it seems to be that you were done, but then I got what it was about. So I did my one pretty fast, and then I realized that the problem solved itself was not what they were looking for. I present to the senior consultant that was there. He goes, okay, it's a good solution, makes sense. You could do different right than there, and you're good. And what they were willing that we do is to check the ones around us that haven't finished yet and offer help. And I didn't do that. But that's what they were expecting us to do. Few did, thanks God, but probably I will not be recruited on that. Yeah. And then they explained it. They said, you know what? Great that you're all good problem solvers, but by the end, we figure out do your academical background and the kind of interviews that we made, that if you're not there yet, you could develop that. What's really important here is teamwork. So you had that time actually to check if you want to help or not the others. So I've never forgot that, man. 30 plus years ago, I've never forgot about that. Yeah. Wow. So teamwork was something pretty important besides, problem solving and the sense of urgency, analytical thinking. That's what I got from there.
Yeah. And, talking about those days on a very high level, what a typical day looked like for you. It was meeting with clients, it was delivering the projects, what was that,
Yeah. Most of the time, pretty tight agenda, right? Because as you know, as everybody knows, management consulting engagements, they tend to be pretty, I would say, tight on what you're supposed to deliver and the amount of time that you have. I think it's worse today because the amount of information that you had previous of the engagement is much more than you used to have when I was doing that. But even that time, it was pretty tight. So a lot of data crunching, mainly when you're in the beginning of your career, a lot of data crunching, a lot of getting information, a lot of interviews. That time, a lot of interviews, since the data was not that organized. So a lot of interviews to get data and get knowledge, and then crunching on this, and then the interaction with senior people to put it together, and from data come to information, and from that information the proposed solutions, and then interaction with the customers. A lot of the clients, that's the way we like to refer to them, right? So a lot of interaction with the clients as well.
So you've done that over 10 years, the experience you acquired, the skills you acquired, and then you moved out of that. And let's get into the first time you actually became, because you've been promoted in different companies. The first time you became a C-level executive. So how old were you at the time?
It's important to say, Damien, that it was different time, not to generate any pressure or anxiety or a will on the people that maybe will listen to this later on. It was a time when it was more usual to have people in the early stage in pretty senior positions. So I was 31. I was 30 actually, 31. I was out of consultants. And when I look back, it almost seems to be some irresponsible to have, people that young on the amount of responsibilities that we had that time. But it was a time which is interesting when you tend to think that people on the age that I am now were almost out of the game, mainly in financial services. It's an investment bank at that time. So you have pretty few of those over 50s there. Most of the people pretty young. So I was 31 when I was in a C-level position.
All right. Well, and why do you think that's different now? Because, or are you being humble here?
No. Because there were many of us. I'm not telling, there were many of us at the 30, 31. And when I moved to retail bank, I was 37 in a very, very senior position. And there are not many today. So that's why I'm not being humble. I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah,
It was it's a difference.
but why do you think it's that? Well, it's not like that long ago, but
I
why
think
is that?
I think there are, my opinion, at least two main reasons. One, mainly in Latin America, the amount of people with a solid background, MBA, and with, I would say, a better base to move forward is
Yeah,
much higher now than it used to be. So, which means that the very few ones that had this opportunity at that time, they went faster. And I was among them and my colleagues so this was the first story. I have a math background. So if there are many of us today, it's harder first. Second, and it's happening year after year, it's more sociological, but the age people tend to be more mature generation after generation. The generation of my father went to war with 18 years. The Royal Air Force
yeah,
pilots were 20 years. My daughter is 25. I have one of 17. I just can't imagine having my daughter in a Second World War in a fighting jet. So it's changing. So I think there is a sociological for that as well. And second, and third, actually, looking back, it was those decisions were more related to the scores of more, senior people than actually we were that ready, to be honest. And that's maybe now it's more balanced. I mean, in the mix, the balance now is better.
okay, so you say, yeah. No. All right, all right. Well, yeah, well, there's a whole topic on that. We can spend a lot of time in
It's
discussion
my
about
perspective.
the
Yeah,
topic. Yeah,
I think you have different perspectives on this.
and you, so you became, the CEO of IRB. Did you, can at the time, did you have like do you have that plan, or was that like a goal, or things just
No,
happened?
I had the ambition to be in senior positions and being totally frankly, and to make money. I mean, to have the
Yeah,
compensation, the proper compensation related to that from the very, very beginning. That's why I mentioned, I think the very pretty first question that you made, that
yeah.
ambition was on me from the beginning. I think it's good. I mean, sometimes
I
here
do
in
think
Latin
so.
America or in the Catholic culture, we tend to think ambition as only the bad side or the dark side of that, right? Stepping on anyone's neck to get your goals. I'm not thinking about that for sure. I'm thinking
Yeah,
about the good ambition. And so I always had that ambition from the very beginning, actually from school. So I
yeah.
always want to be the number one. And then I work hard to set the path. So this is a good question because maybe gives me the opportunity to share with the people that will listen to us that making the right picks on your and choose on your career and trying to build that path. Try because most of the variables you do not manage, but the ones at least that you manage, try to keep the focus on this and build your path to get there. uh, I think it's more and more about design than by chance. So
Mhm. Okay. When you say, the ambitions side of things, I would call it I would call it progress. The desire for progress. It has that, that bad association with the word, but yeah, it's the progress. Desire for progress. So you get there. You get the career. You get to these very very high level positions. What, yeah, like, for people who are not there quite yet, right? And I'm curious, what is a typical day? What what a typical day looks like for a CEO of a multinational, of a big company? What do you do? What do you do? You wake up, and what happens?
yeah, most of the time, and I would say this was my routine the last 15 years at least, is to be close to your people. I think it sounds obvious, but that's what will demand most of your time when you are in a leadership position. And if you are the number one, even more. Do not underestimate the importance of being close and communicating all the time. If I can share something that worked in my, is that communications, communicate. And when you think everybody got it and you're done, communicate that again. It's amazing the amount of time that you lose bad communication. And it's not only you that is busy and overwhelmed by stuff. The whole is in the same position. So it's pretty easy having people forgetting what is really important and doing a lot of stuff that by the end will not add value to your original plan and what is important for you and the customers and your shareholders. So communicating what do you want to, and what's important to be done, pretty important. So this is something that spend a lot of time. And I would say the other part of usual day, at least in financials in the positions that I was, is to be close to your customers as well. And it changed a lot during my career. And I'm being pretty transparent here. The fact is, in the beginning of my career in financial services, for sure, everybody would told you, and rationally, we thought that we working hard to address our customers' pains. I think the focus on the bottom line and the focus on making more sometimes do not putting our customers' interests in the very front. I would say took part of our routine and changed a lot in the last years. And mainly, I think retail bankings and payments and insurance is somehow, they are somehow working hard, not now, but in the last years, to be more balanced on this. So being close to the customers, I would say, took part of my routine a lot in the last years.
Okay. You were saying, you were talking about the importance of communication being one thing that you do on a daily basis, right? When you're at the C level, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 skills that a C-level executive needs to have to be an effective leader?
I would say, and I say it loud in a way that I do not forget, but resilience is pretty important. So I would say probably put it in first. And a true passion maybe would be too much, but a true interest on people. And my background is financial services. So in financial services, it's all about people and technology. So a true interest on people, I would say it's pretty close, or maybe it's number one with resilience. And number 3 is an ability to reinvent yourself. This is something that I wouldn't tell you in the very beginning or even the middle stage of my career, but in the last stage, mainly in the number one position, this is something that definitely I think it's really important to keep you on the top. Maybe it doesn't drive you to the top, but it keeps you at the top.
Okay. When you think about leadership, leadership, it's a big word, right? It can mean different things, but for you, what is a leader based on your opinion?
First, and definitely the most important, in my opinion, again, it's too broad. Yeah. We can spend a day speaking about this, but as a headhunter, I learned that the first things that he'll say are the most important ones. So I would tell you, walk the talk. If you really want people to trust you, to be aligned with you, to be on your side, good times, bad times, walk the talk. And nowadays, it was always important, but nowadays, even more important, because there's so many pressures on what is right, what is wrong, and the white and black sometimes, and then we all know that the truth is in the middle, right? Certainly white, so not that side. But when there's all this pressure to tell you what's wrong and right, and there is almost a pressure on you to manifest things that you do not believe, or there is a common sense that makes you go in a direction. But if you don't truly believe in this, and more important than this, your day-by-day actions don't show that you truly believe in what you're talking, you lose your credibility, man. Do not underestimate that. People got it. It's pretty obvious. But I see so many times leaders forgetting to walk the talk, that I would say walk the talk is the very first one. We talk about communication as well. So communications all the time. And to make things easier to the ones that are working with you, I would say that discipline in execution is important as well. If you lose focus all the time, if you are all the time getting that there is a new stuff to be done, I'm not saying that you have to marry to a bad plan, or if the environment change, we'll keep that. But changing all the time gets people tired and frustrated. So discipline and execution is important as well. I think those three together makes, at least for me, work well.
Yeah. And do you think that there's like a specific sort of personality that makes better leaders? Or if you're an introvert, if you're more quiet, can you be an effective leader? Like, can you learn to be one? Is that a skill? Is that something that you're born with, or you have it or you don't? What do you think?
Definitely you learn that. Definitely you learn. This is not something that comes with you, and only the extrovert and the ones that born with that gift would be good leaders. I do not believe in this, and I have seen, and I use to myself, the ability to learn is very important. I think mainly one of the most important skills nowadays, and ever, but nowadays even more, is the ability to learn. So definitely it is something that you can learn. But having said that, I will not be ridiculous here to not say the ones that have a natural ability for that will do it faster in an easy fashion than the ones that have to work harder on communication skills. For instance, if you're shy, you have to work harder for that. But you can learn that. Definitely can learn. And I see a lot of people in this.
And how do you learn it? I mean, practically. Is it go to a Harvard course? You get a be there, how someone that does not know how to be a leader can learn how to be one? Practically, what can I do?
I think it's a mix. And thanks God, the tools nowadays are pretty much available, and they're much more easy. The issue now is to pick the right one. I mean, because there's so information, and so I think it's a mix. Definitely formal education helps on this, and I think it's worthwhile to go through that. Observation, I think it is still something that helps a lot. What the ones that you do admire in the where you're working or outside. Where you work, it's easier because it links me with the third, I would say, suggestion that I would make is to try to have a mentor. I do believe in mentorship programs. I regret that I didn't have this opportunity when I was growing as a leader. Actually, we used to value that much at that time. But mentoring programs work pretty well. Something that I have never tried, but there are so many in the market that probably are good ones as well, and it's a variation of mentoring, is maybe some coaching. I used for people that work with me in the last two companies that I was coaching to develop faster those skills and the ones that we saw potential to be good leaders.
So it can definitely be learned. There's a way to do that. That's great. Something that I wanted to ask you about is, and it goes with leadership, it goes with the ability to influence. I remember you telling me about a situation you lived in one of these big insurance companies, Metlife. There was a challenging situation that you faced there, and you either had to turn that around.
Or a bad outcome.
Yeah. You get there, CEO, look at the situation. There's something, an outcome that you need to achieve. What's the framework? What do? You get there, you look around, where are we going? We're going there. And then how you move the organization, right? So how do you influence an entire organization to go in a certain direction?
I would say the very first step, and it applies to what happened in Metlife, but in other situations as well, is to assess the opportunity. So what is the opportunity for this enterprise? So in this marketplace, there are so many things that could be done. We have, what are the strengths that we have? What are the weaknesses that we have? And what is the opportunity? Among everything that could be done, what we believe, and it's a big we because it's what I believe. I have to convince my boss and then the people. So really, and it should be done fast. And maybe management consultant helped me a lot. What is the opportunity? So that's the opportunity. So and when you figure out that, that's it. Don't try again to figure out it. That's it.
Okay, you gotta commit. So
you have to commit that first.
Okay.
And then get on board the important stakeholders for that. And this is step that they should be fast, because people is watching you, mainly in a situation where there were so many failures in the past. I'm not speaking about any specific case. You pick one, but there are so many failures in the past that people anxious and tired. And probably many of them, when you get there, they say, this is another one that will not succeed. Because they have seen so many, 20 years. So there were so many. So another one, blah, 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 but will not make it. So access, get on board the important stakeholder. In that case, it was my boss and other people important to, share the resources to achieve the goals that I'm putting in front of us, and then communicate that for the people that you have there, and fast again, access the ones that have the skills and the potential and the will. The will is pretty important to be with you, to get out of that situation, make the changes, and we have made a lot of changes in the leadership. Most of the people were already there in different positions. So, just change people what they're doing, promote the ones that have the potential and the will to do it faster, and then execution. You mentioned, it was your very first question, where I start my career, management consulting. I love it. I love to design very, very beautiful and intellectually satisfying strategic planning. It's great to have a good plan, but much important than the plan is the ability to execute. This is something old, but it's important to repeat. Bad strategy or mediocrity strategy with brilliant execution, you get there. Brilliant strategy, poor execution, nothing. So I'm not saying that a strategy is not important. What I'm saying is, discipline and execution, and getting people focused on this made all the difference. As important as to choose what to do is obviously forget about what doesn't make sense, what's not that agile, and stop it. And in corporate life, the larger the corporation, the worse is the situation. There are a lot of stuff that's being done that makes zero sense. It makes zero sense because people are attached to their egos and thinks they had that idea. And among us, it's not their money. They spend it and it's going. And it was, what is the fuck, man? It doesn't make sense to make this. So stop it and resist to the temptation of starting new stuff that, it's fancy and everything, but by the end, will not make a difference. And if you're not right, change it fast. Do not be attached, emotionally attached to that, and finish. I mean, it's done. Let's do what makes a difference.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
And it worked.
Damien, there was no rocket science most of the time. There was no rocket science. It's more about, again, execution.
Those simple things, the execution, committing to something.
The right people.
What we'll talk about, executives and the skills that they need to have. What attributes let's say I want to be part of Raphael's team, okay? What attributes do you look for in that person for you to consider them, I want you to be part of the team? What are the top 2 or 3 attributes,
Well, first depends a lot of the position, right? I'm telling this because I used to focus on some soft skills that I still consider pretty important, but for some positions, the technical side, you should give the same or sometimes even a higher weight. It's very hard to me to say that because I do believe in soft skills, and that's what moved my career. So you tend to think that's, but I was not on the technical side most of the time. So, and this is something that I would say that I learned recently. I would say in the last 10 years, that for some positions, do not underestimate the importance of the technical side because it takes too much time in senior positions to close the gap in the technical side if you want fast outcomes. So that's something that I learned. So again, so depends on the position. But having said that, people that challenges me and challenge the situation, people that are not shy to do that. And this is something that I learned. I've been working in Latin America for most of my career, south to north. And it's interesting that you have to adapt yourself on what is to challenge, que es retar, depending on where you are. Because if you go to a specific region with your, what is to challenge the situation, to challenge your boss, or to challenge the ones in senior positions, you'll be a little bit frustrated. So you have to understand what it is and adapt yourself. So if you have here people listen to us that are working in different regions of our big region, I would say this is something that you have to adapt yourself. But getting back to your question, the ability to challenge the status quo and not shy to challenge your boss. I want to be challenged. Okay. Second, people that have different angle that I have or different background that I have in a way to have a better mix. And depending on the team as well, how you see that specific piece playing with the rest of the team. This is something that you have to keep in mind. And something that I use sometimes, and a boss that I had in the middle of my career used a lot, is when you're bringing a key person for that team, have the rest of the team interviewing as well. Not as a decision maker, but to really, and it works. Sometimes you can make it, sometimes you can't, but there's something. In financial service, I think bringing people that believe that people is the most important asset on what you're doing is important as well. So, and no matter where this person will be in your team in financial service, people that is willing to work with good people and do believe that developed people And be close to the people is important. This is something that I look for. And depending on the position, again, I would say as the fourth, true passion for the customers. This is something that I think is important as well. And again, depending on people will be.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about sales, sales skills, influencing skills. What would you say is the hardest sale you made?
Well, there were many. I would say that the one that the outcomes were not clear until the very end, and there were a lot of people not believing that it could be done. So I think it makes the hardest one. I mean, was a follow-on that I led in a public company that was the CEO in the past. So that was the hardest. But because even by the end, I've never doubted. But there are so many people who will not make it. It will be hard. But by the end, it worked. So I think it was the hardest sale that I made because there was a lot of personal credibility on this. And the ones that were on the other side deciding if they would invest or not, they were somehow listening to your story. They were for sure assessing the situation, but for sure they were assessing as well if you would be able to deliver what you were promising. So I think it was one of the hardest, if not the hardest.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Can you tell a little bit about that story?
It is somehow a public case. It was the follow-on of IRB that went on last year. I think I can share what was public, right? It was local investors, foreign investors. We have in the beginning one set of investors in the company. By the end, it changed in the way we were planning. And there was a lot of, like any process of this, it was pretty intense. I think we had to spoke to so many people in so many places and trying to show them our angle and understand theirs as well. So it was pretty interesting. Let me put it this way.
All right, excellent. You've been a consultant as well, which is very interesting from you because you had those two sides, right? Let's say I'm a consultant, all right? And I want to go out there and I need to onboard clients, get clients, deliver projects. How, practically, can like a framework or playbook? What's the playbook you used to follow to go out there to get clients? Who do you target? What value do you add? So, kind of the framework. What's a framework someone can use to go out there and start?
Well, I think in developing the business first, I think the very first step is to have a very clear understanding on where you want to play. There's this huge market there, where I want to play. This is the very first step, in a way that you focus on what are the help that I can get before you go. What are the help that I can get from that? I've worked in professional service, right? Into global enterprises, Accenture and Rusell Reynolds. So what we have there in a way that I can bring to the potential customers the best of Rusell Reynolds and the best of Accenture. And there is a lot there. And believe it or not, people forget a lot to rely on this. It's obvious. It's obvious. The capital knowledge that you have in those enterprises is huge. But sometimes I don't know the reason. I'm not to speculate on the reason. You forget to do the very basic stuff. What I can bring from the best of the company that I work for those customers. What I use, and I don't know if works for everyone, is to start on the ones that I feel more empathy. I can see myself in that situation. because at least in my case, it helped a lot to be in the same tone, in the same frequency, if you will, with the potential customer, and to somehow making him or her understand that I can do the job. I mean, that I really understand, and it's more than understand, it's to have empathy on the situation that he or she is facing. And for sure, do your homework when you are putting together your pitch. I mean, understand what the competition would be doing, and show that you are for any reason better than the others to solve the problem. But in this, I would say order. That's what I used to do, and it worked. Right. I used to sell a lot. It worked.
So, and what do you do when there's no business there? You go there, you introduce yourself, you present your solution. What do you do in between? Because you can work one time with a client, but what about the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth?
Yeah. For sure, should be a need for future engagements. This is obvious. So sometimes it's a one-time engagement. On as what I said is what sells after the first engagement is the quality of the delivery of the first engagement. So do your best in the first engagement, because there is no second opportunity to redo the job. I mean, so you have to redone the job. You have to work hard and again, discipline and execution on the engagement. But if it is one shot and after that it is done, there is something that at least we used to say down here in Brazil, is that if you're not seen, no one reminds you. So find opportunities to be in the radar of your customer all the time. Send him or her, capital knowledge. Share with him capital knowledge from your enterprise. Finds opportunities to see him or her speaking in public or on the media, or make a comment on this. So be in the radar.
Be on the radar.
If you made a good impression on the first engagement, and if you are sharing, and for sure there is a common sense on this, do not overwhelm anyone with garbage, because it's a very fast way to do exactly the opposite.
To no longer appear on the radar. Yeah,
definitely. But because if you did that in the future, if something show, they will remind you because you are around. But do not underestimate the better you are. If you are not in the radar, people forget about you, because it's not only your agenda that is busy. Everyone's agenda is busy. They forget you. So be in the radar. I have a colleague in the executive search experience that I had that was very good on that. I learned a lot on him. Very, very good. And actually worked together as well in management consult, but he was very good on that. I learned a lot, and I kept that. Right. Well, this guy does it good. What goes back to what you asked me about leadership. Observe who are the benchmarks, who are the good ones. Learn on them. Do not be, shy on doing what people. And to be honest, getting back, and sorry to jump from one subject to other, but when you asked about a turnaround that I was involved, one of the very simple stuff that we did there is, well, someone is doing something in a competition. Why we don't do the same? They made a lot of mistakes. They have a lot of issues. They are around for years, but they're solving this year after year. Let's get this that is already done and do it again here. Right. And for some reason, people were so I would say, I don't know, I don't know why, but anyway, you sometimes you don't do, just observe and do it.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Just
Don't
you don't
reinvent
have.
the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. The guy that was running strategy in this company at that time, years, I stayed there for 8 years. When I was leaving, he mentioned to me, Raphael, do you remind the very first question that you made me when I present what we're doing and what are our plans? Leo, I can't remember that. And he said, you asked me why we are not doing this that X company is doing.
Yeah.
I didn't remind that actually, but
Sometimes,
it's so obvious. So obvious.
Yes, and sometimes we overcomplicate it. When it's there, someone had their failure. You can learn from someone who's already done that.
Or ego. You're doing a copy. You want to do by your way. You want to do the way your companies used to do.
I want to be the author here. Yeah. All right. Well, Raphael, we're kind of getting to the end here. We're running out of time, but I think that a good question to ask, keeping in mind all your journey and the things you learn, if you had to go back, or if you look at the Raphael who was just starting, his career, out of college, there, let's say the 25-year-old, knowing what you know about that Raphael, what advice would you give him?
It's easy. And I will start with a joke. The best definition for experience. This is something that you have 10 seconds after you need it. So I heard that one time, and I think, well, it's good. First thing, it's not about you. It's about much more people, and having them on board from the very beginning and managing your ego. I think all of this is important, is obvious. But again, you asked me about someone that was in the 25, 22 years old. So ego management and understanding that it's not about you, it is about the team, it is about the customers, would say my very, very first advice. The second one, and this is something that seems to be an old guy statement, right? But do not take yourself so seriously. And you have to work hard. Definitely, you need a huge sense of urgency. Definitely. But when you fail, it's not the end of the world. In the beginning of our careers, and depending on the kind of mindset that you have, failure seems to be the end of the world, and you take yourself so seriously and you think that it will be a huge damage. It will not. Most of the time, do not spend too much time on this. Do not suffer and do not spend energy on this. I think it's hard when it's easier to say than to practice, but do not spend too much time on this. Learn what you have to learn. Again, seems to be old people stuff. But again, that's one of the beauties of getting old. I mean, you have the experience. So do not spend too much on time. Learn the best that you can of that and move forward. Do not suffer on this. The world will not end to your failures. And by the end, it is the balance that is important and not each specific step.
Very good. Raphael, it's been really a pleasure to have you here. Really appreciate it. And we'll hope to continue and have another one of these soon.
No, definitely, Damian. Thanks again for having me here. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun, to be honest.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I really appreciate it. It was great chat. All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.